Hello, everyone. My name is Dina Buck, and I serve as Virginia's Learn the Science Act Early Ambassador. And I am so excited to have a chance to talk with you all just for a little bit about some resources that I think you might find useful in your work and in your role as family members and partners and collaborators at the community level in making sure that families and anybody who spends time with young children has information available to them about child development and how to support young children and how to support children when a need for additional supports and resources is identified and to support their families. So I am so grateful to have a chance to work with the New Path program, and Robin Church and I have worked together for a really long time. And I'm so grateful to have this opportunity to visit with you all just for a little bit today. If, as a result of this information sharing time, you have other questions that you would like to ask of me, my information and contact information is at the end of the PowerPoint. Please reach out. I would love to chat with you. If you have ideas about partners in your community that you would like to share these Learn the Science Act Early materials with, we can figure some things out together. So I appreciate your time and look forward to talking soon. All right, so we're going to get started. I think that child development is fascinating and have always felt that way. I think even as a young person, was really curious about how children learn and change so quickly, especially really young kids. So it's not surprising that my whole career has had something to do with early childhood and supporting families as they help their children get off to a great start. I'm also grandma to, I have two grown daughters and two sons-in-law. And now I have a grandson, Oliver, who's 3.5, and a new baby that will be here soon. So child development, while always been a priority of mine, is now right and front and center in my life on an everyday basis, as it is for you. So again, all right, so we're just going to get started. Let me see if I can get this to start. I mentioned before about the Learn the Science Act Early campaign. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in Atlanta, Georgia, has a whole focus area on everything that has to do with our health and wellness and community health. But they have a real interest in early childhood and supporting families. And so about 15 or 16 years ago, they started a program called Learn the Science Act Early. It was originally started actually as an effort to identify children who may have more complex needs, and because we weren't doing a great job of that, and we were meeting families too late after they had already had concerns for a long time. So this campaign started as a public health initiative so that if we all talked about child development and we had good information about child development and we had some tools and resources for families and providers and home visitors and anybody who spends time with young children to kind of pay attention to children's development, know what to do to encourage their development, and then what to do if they ever had a concern, how to take action. So the Learn the Signs, Act Early were kind of the two parts of this campaign. So I had the good fortune to be selected as Virginia's Act Early Ambassador in 2012 and have continued to serve in that role. I was in actually the first cohort of they did a pilot 1 year in 2011, and then they started the program in earnest in 2012. And I was selected in that first group. So I'd love for you to, we'll go look at the website, a part of our time together. But if you have half an hour someday, and I know you have lives that are really crazy with young children, but if you would like to look at all the resources from the campaign, they are all on the Learn the Science Act Early website. So if you just Google Learn the Science Act Early, it pops right up. But the link is actually www.cdc.gov, which is what it is for all CDC, and then /Act Early. And that's how you'll get to the campaign's homepage. Dr. Cohen, who is actually the director of the CDC, came to meet with us at the last Act Early training. We had one just in November, and then we had one last spring. She joined us in the spring, and she is a big advocate of Learn the Science Act Early as one tool in their arsenal for supporting families of young children. But I just wanted to share her message, so we're just going to listen to this really quickly.
Young Family. That's Mandy Cohen, CDC Director, and I wanted to let you know about a free app that families can use to track the development of your kids. We all want to make sure our kids are growing up healthy, meeting those milestones. So go and download on the App Store right now a CDC milestone tracker, and it'll help you track those milestones and talk about it with your pediatrician. Okay, stay well, everyone.
So we will talk in just a few minutes. We'll talk a little more about that app, that milestone tracker app. But if you have a minute while you're listening to me, if you want to go ahead and look at your app, if you are a person who uses an iPhone, you can download it from the App Store. And if you use a Google, like a Android system, you can do it from Google Play. And there's no cost to using the app. So it might be nice when we get to talking about the app if you have already downloaded it, so we can kind of play with it a little bit together. So what I was kind of hoping we could spend a little time doing today is thinking about these Learn the Signs Act early materials, these resources, checklists, children's books, but really with the goal of thinking about how we can get them into the hands of families of young children so that they have resources to monitor and pay attention to their children's development, and then to promote what the research about this work is being referred to as parent engaged developmental monitoring or family engaged developmental monitoring. And I'll talk some more about what those components are, but the idea is if everybody who's spending time with young children has in front of them some information about child development, what to do to encourage children's development, and then what to do to take action if you ever have a concern, then we are cooking with gas. So that's where we're trying to get to. So these are tools that we can use for that purpose. So, and not only just knowing about the materials, but really promoting them and really doing just like what Dr. Cohen just did of saying, we don't have to talk about 800 things, but here's a tool. We'd love for you to use it. And let's get this in the hands of families. So if all of us are sharing that message, then we'll be able to be more successful in reaching families of children in Virginia and all across the country. I am hoping that you will see a few resources here that you think you could put into action, whether for your own family, families that you know, families in your community. The New Path program has been such a wonderful way for us to learn from families and to connect and use these resources across Virginia. So I hope you will continue to help me with that effort. So this is our picture from the training that we did in March. These are all the Act Early ambassadors. We now have just finished our training. We were there November 13th and 14th. And I'm sorry, I can't find the most recent picture, but this is what our group looked like in March. There are 63 of us. Some states have 2. We also now have an ambassador in every state, and we have ambassadors in all of the territories, which is really exciting. So I got a chance to visit with the ambassador from American Samoa at the training, which was fascinating. Okay, so know that I'm part of a network. And so part of what I've also been able to do, Robin and I have done some work together, and I've been able to reach out to other ambassadors to say, how did you do this in your state? How can we learn from each other? So if you have a question that you think I might be able to gather information, or you know of a partner from another state that's involved in family support and family leadership and family engagement efforts, I would love to I'd love to connect back with the ambassador from that state. So if you have those opportunities, I'd love to know about those collaborations too. Why we want to pay attention to young children's development. We know from the research that 1 in 6 children between 3 and 17 has some type of developmental disability, and that 1 in 36 is the most current information in the group of 8-year-olds. This is how the study is done, who are estimated to have autism. Or be autistic. And so certainly this is something that is a much more common reality of life for young children and their families. So I think what we're trying to make sure is that that's actually a sizable number of children. And so we want to make sure that we are reaching those numbers and identifying concerns when families already potentially have those concerns, so that families don't have to wait. And that developmental disabilities are even more common in children who live in poverty with limited resources, and that 1 in 5 children experience a developmental delay or disability. And that we know also from the literature that the earlier children get the support that they need, it is going to be more successful than waiting. So we know that that's our best opportunity. I mentioned this idea of this phrase family engaged or parent engaged developmental monitoring. And in general, this is a way to help with early identification and support. And kind of when I started doing this work, we talked a lot about children having developmental screening and getting connected to services. But what we missed was the part that came before that. And what we missed was it sort of was this presumption that as long as you started this process, it worked. And that's really not always what happens. Sometimes someone is concerned about a child's development, but they don't know who to call next, or they would like a parent to help them, but they don't know how to find a parent who's a veteran who could do that. Or they have a developmental screening done, and it's not indicated that the child needs further testing or evaluation, but the parent is still concerned. And we need to do a better job of listening to that voice. So when this research was just recently updated, they have expanded, and I'll tell you the steps that they've put in, but the idea of really thinking about education, and that it's not just milestones, it's thinking about wellness and of children having a medical home and all these different pieces that support a child getting off to a really good start. They also have really strengthened the focus on developmental promotion. So as we talk for all children, for families to know your child is 18 months old now, everything is in the developmental milestones are being met. And what they're going to do in the next 6 months is these kinds of things. So here are some activities to encourage your child's development. So all of that information that puts families in the owner's seat of having information about development, things to do to encourage their development, but also who to contact if they have concerns, and how to build that relationship with their medical provider so that that is a partnership of getting that child connected. So all of those to me are really good practices, and they actually put it together in this roadmap. And we won't have time today to talk all in detail about this roadmap, except I did just want you to know that kind of at the national level, people have been thinking this through a little bit more and trying to put some words to it and some steps to it so that it crosses different sectors. So health and family support and early childhood special ed and supports. So in general, the idea of the universal strategies that are there are things that we do to offer support to the development of all children and families, so that we're always talking about development. We have good information about typical child development. We engage families in this so that families are the people who are paying attention to their children's development and know what to look for at different ages. And we also are giving them information about how to encourage their kids' development, and that for all children have regular developmental screening. So that's the same kind of thing that we're doing now when your child goes for a well child check at the doctor's office, that someone is really paying attention on a scheduled time that is kind of a check-in with an actual tool or measure or resource. A developmental screening is what that's called. So we're doing those for all kids. Then if a need is identified for additional information or additional resources, that we go ahead and make those referrals so that families can get connected to the services that they need and that they actually receive those. So we think about this almost like a pyramid shape, that all families have those universal strategies. And then if a child needs additional support, we have that available, and we know how to do it, and we know how to get into those services, and then that they actually get what they need. So it's sort of been put together in this little circle, so that if we start kind of over here on the left-hand side in the purple, that we are all promoting development, that we have good information for families about developmental monitoring. Now, the tools that I'm going to show you today from the Learn the Signs Act Early campaign are much more intended for that framework of family engaged developmental monitoring. So families have actual tools, information, that app, a checklist, a milestones book. They have children's books, all of those with the same information about child development, and it's available in different formats. Then we make sure children have an actual developmental screening on a regular basis. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends that children have a developmental screening at 9 months, 30 months, that they have an autism screening at 24 and 30 months, and that they also have regular well child checks where your doctor asks those questions of how many words is he using? I see he's starting to pull up. How does he get along with his brother or sister? All of those things give that doctor, health professional, a picture of how your child is doing, and it gives you a chance to share the information that you are noticing. And if a child does need additional support or family needs additional support, we get those referrals made, and then the children receive those services in a timely manner. I sort of just started talking about development and developmental milestones, but just to make sure we're all using that term similarly, developmental milestones are the things that most children can do by a certain age. It has to do with how a child plays and learns and speaks and acts and moves. And they do give us important clues about a child's developmental health and information. I love that picture right there. That is one of my favorite developmental milestones of young children. So maybe she's 15 or 18 months and she's got that finger and she is showing us in the world what she is interested in. She might have seen an airplane go by. She might be pointing to a bird. She might be telling her mom that she wants to go play on the playground. Children can children can exhibit and show us a lot of what they're curious about when they have that ability to point and show us what interests them. That's one of my favorites. If you want to take a minute and think about something you love doing, a friend of mine absolutely loves when her grandbaby plays and does peekaboo, and it reminded me too of how much I enjoy doing that with my kids. One of the things that the campaign, the Learn the Signs Act Early campaign, has done is put together visual representations of all of these child development milestones. So when we look on the website, if you wanted to see a milestone in action, there's actually this picture is of a 9-month-old, and it's a question that's on the 9-month-old checklist, and it says, is your child able to smile or laugh when you play peekaboo? So if you are a parent and you're not quite sure what that means, or peekaboo is not a game that you typically play, but you play another thing where maybe you go around the corner of the room and poke your head in. All of those are things that help us show that the child understands you are still there even when you're out of sight. And so anyway, it's a great game, but the campaign has either a picture or a video of all of the milestones, and they are all now in English and Spanish. The milestones were updated in 2019. They were actually released in 2019. Their work started in 2018. They wanted us to remember that these are for developmental monitoring. They are health information tools and resources. They are not developmental screening tools. That's a whole separate thing. You might have heard people talk about the ASQ or the ASQSE. There's the SEAMS, all these different tools that are out there that are designed to be developmental screening tools. They have been developed, they've been researched, and they have a research background to go with them. The developmental tools we are going to be looking at, the milestones, are health information and communication tools about general child development. So they don't replace developmental screening. They're just one step in that process of family engaged developmental monitoring. They were updated. If you're interested in the process, here are some of the key changes that were made. A giant group of people came together and worked over about a year and a half. They looked at every study that had been had their scientific rigor to be able to be included in this review, but they looked at hundreds and thousands of studies, and then based on that information brought this expert panel, including families, together to determine revisions to make in the milestones. Kind of the biggest change that they made, if you've seen older versions of these, they kind of had a lot of purple, and I'll show you what the new ones look like. So if you ever do see any of the older ones, we probably need to dispose of those because now we want to be able to use the new ones. But one of the key changes that was made is in the old ones, there was a list that said, these are things that kids do at this age, but that was what half of kids did by that age. And then there was a separate box that said red flags. and that those would be the things that 75% of kids should be doing by that age. And the idea was to give families you need to take action if it's one of these 75% things. But what ended up happening is families weren't sure when they were supposed to take action and when this was a concern or it wasn't. So the milestones have now been updated. Everything that's included as an item on these checklists and this information is something that 75% of children are typically doing by that age. So if your child is not yet showing one of the items, that's something that you want to be able to talk to your healthcare professional for your child and figure out whether developmental screening is now warranted, or we maybe go ahead and connect to our early intervention or early childhood special ed systems and supports. So we hope that that makes that easier for families to know what to do. There also, in some of the items before, there was language that was sort of it wasn't always clear. So it would say some of the old items used to say things like may put two words together. Well, if you're a parent, I mean, if anybody, it's like, does that mean if they're not doing it, that's a may not? Anyway, it was just confusing. So know that the materials were updated in 2019, and there's a whole article in the journal Pediatrics if you're interested, and I'd be happy to get that link to you. One of the other things that they did, so this is what one of the checklists looks like. So they cover children's development from 2 months to 5 years. So the checklists themselves have items to look for in there, and there's 4 broad areas of development: social, emotional, language and communication, cognitive and thinking skills, and movement and physical milestones. One of the things that they added, though, were these open-ended questions. And so one of those, in thinking about you using this as a tool in preparation for your child's well-child check, for instance, child's 18 months old, your child's 5, you go through this, it asks you to think about some additional questions, like what are some things your child really enjoys doing? Are there some things your child used to do that they are no longer doing developmentally? Is there something that, even if your child checks all these things, that they can do them, but there's still something that you are concerned about as the child's parent? You can write that down so that it gives you a tool to use when you go to the doctor's office. I've heard from lots of families that they like having some way to organize their thoughts before those meetings. And the Milestone Tracker app is the same thing, the same information, but you can choose to do it on your app. I've also heard from lots of families who you can send from the app all the information to your child's doctor. So you can complete your checklist for your child's 5-year-old checkup or their 18-month-old checkup and actually email it to the doctor, or you can print it out and take it with you. So it's lots of ways to be able to use the information in your collaboration with your child's health professional. They also build in opportunities to remind us when a child should have a developmental screening done. And of course, another time you can always have a developmental screening is when you're concerned about something. So it doesn't only have to be on that schedule from the American Academy of Pediatrics. Here's some things that we have found that work pretty well, is making sure families know that they can complete these checklists, they can do it on the app, they can print these out, that we really get this message to families that that this is their child. And if this is a way that they can document what they're noticing, what they're concerned about, ask the doctor to go ahead and get a developmental screening done. Let's get that scheduled, or let's do that today. Or who can I get connected to or in my community who has expertise in supporting young children? Our state's early intervention program, Infant and Toddler Connection in Virginia, you're probably familiar and connected with that system. Our local school divisions are responsible for early childhood special ed supports for children 3 to 5, actually 2 in Virginia. That's another matter, but 2 by September 30th. Anyway, it's just great to know. We want to make sure that families know about steps they can take and about resources that are available. So these tools can be one great way for that to happen. All right, so I'm just going to show you some of the resources, and then we'll have a time to go pop over to the website. This is just a sampling, although this is a good picture of most of the resources that we have. The CDC has just done an incredible job of doing this work for us. So the materials have already all been developed. You can download everything from the CDC's website. You can print them yourself. I print those milestones checklists on my regular printer at my desk and use them that way, and they look great. You don't have to send them off to a printer. The Milestones Moments booklets, you do have to print those. The printer needs to do those. And the books, the children's books. There's also a way to order materials. So right there where it says www.cdc.gov/act early, that's again the homepage for the Learn the Signs Act Early campaign. And on that page, you can actually go and order these materials and have them shipped to you at your house. I also have a supply of some of them here. Robin and I have been able to include these materials in packets that go to families of children leaving the NICU, for instance. So we are loving ways that we can collaborate and get them in the hands of families. Far to the left here is a growth chart. And the growth chart has just been updated, but unlike like regular growth chart would say, he's this tall, and they've mapped it according to typical development at that height, physical development. But what they've added, and you can hardly see it on here, but so the child's age is there on the left-hand side, the height or what height is there. Then there's an animal that sort of draws attention. And then at 3, these are typically things children are doing developmentally. So if you're a person who's weighing and measuring children, for instance, like a WIC nurse, you can, while you're measuring them, you'll say, oh my gosh, he's 28 inches tall. And tell me more about what he's doing in his development. And it's just this nice way to have that be a conversation. So the growth charts have just been updated, and they've been updated to include the current immunization information for children under 5. So if you're interested in the growth chart, let me know. I have some at the office. Well, they're on the way. The CDC has also developed children's books. So we're going to look at those in a little bit more detail, but that's Amazing Me, Where's Bear? And over on the right-hand side, Baby's Busy Day, which is a baby's hardback book. The app I told you about, that's right in the middle. That's what one of the home pages looks like for the app. So those are some of the resources that we have. So again, I think I mentioned before, this is these developmental screening sheets. We go again from 2 months to 18, 2 months, 4, 6, 9 months, 12 months. So 5 in the first year, then 18 months, 24, 30, 36 months, and then 4 and 5. So there are 12 of them all together. They're all laid out the same, but the items, of course, are different based on their age. But I mentioned before about that reminder about developmental screening. So the 18-month-old one, I've circled, but it has a reminder there. Don't forget, your child needs to have a developmental screening and an autism screening when your child is 18 months old, and that would be done with your health professional. So all the same information. So whatever this research showed us for 15-month-old children is the same information, whether it's included in the Milestone Tracker app, which is on the left, the checklist, which is in the middle, or in this little booklet called Milestones Moments. I really like the little booklet, the Milestones Moments booklet, and that's what they look like now. So if you see that, that's what this is. You'll also notice at the bottom here that all of the materials are co-branded with the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the American Academy of Pediatrics. The AAP, if I just use that acronym, the AAP is the coordinating function actually for the Act Early ambassadors. So they do all of our training. We have this wonderful collaboration with the American Academy of Pediatrics, and it has been a big help to us in furthering the connections with Learn the Signs. This again just tells you that this is that we know. So children should have a well child check. You should have a developmental screening at 9, 18, and 30 months. I said that before. And then at 18 and 24 months for developmental screening related to autism. So it just reminds you about those things. The app was updated. This is just it's a half a sheet flyer that we are putting out everywhere, trying to let families know about the Milestone Tracker app. This is the Milestones Moment booklet that I mentioned before. It covers, again, the same information, but it's in a kind of a small booklet. It's 5 by 7, and I think it's a really handy dandy size. We are developing a Virginia version of it right now that we should have finished by the end of December. So I'm very excited about that. The children's books are delightful. We have one for babies, Where is Bear is a 2-year-old, and then Amazing Me, It's Busy Being 3. These are all available in English and Spanish. All of the materials are in English and Spanish, and the checklists themselves have been translated into about 24 different languages. So on the website, it will show you those languages, and you're welcome to download those from there. So if you know families and or work with partners in your community, and families, of course, speak many, many languages in our state. My local school, 54 languages are spoken there. So anyway, we know that that diversity exists in our communities, and we want to be responsive to that. The books themselves are only in English and Spanish at this point. Just wanted you to know that. It is important to know, though, that these are, and I've mentioned this before, but that the materials themselves are not a developmental screening tool. They are not validated in that way. The tools that currently exist for us to use as developmental screening tools have been designed by researchers. They were tested and ensured that they had fidelity and they could be reliable and valid for use for that purpose. These Learn the Signs materials kind of come before that in the sequence of developmental monitoring. They are tools to help us with, for all children, developmental monitoring. And they also are helpful. I sometimes hear from families who say, I'm not quite sure how I could use these once my child, if a concern is already identified. But I encourage families, if that feels comfortable to you, to continue to know that these resources are there. Your child may need additional support in one particular area of development, but these tools may be helpful in helping you pay attention to the other areas of your child's development. They also may be helpful in thinking about activities to do to support your child's development, wherever that is in the developmental sequence. The materials themselves, I'm going to actually go back because I forgot to tell you one thing. On the checklists themselves, which again, this is just one for 30 months, but on the back side of the sheets, this is kind of a 1-pager, 8.5 by 11. This is the front. The back has all this great information of things to do for a child of this age to encourage their development. But those are also sort of they're games and activities to remember to do that will also support your child in the next 6 months or the next 3 months as they develop and grow. So while your child may have your child's development may be delayed, the developmental sequence is mostly the same. So whether your child is now using one word at this age, the next thing that will come is this and this and this. So it may still be a resource that would be helpful to you and to other families. Let's see. We talked about they're not valid. These are also not inclusive of all things that children do at this age. That probably makes total sense to you, and you would have already thought of that. But I do think that the CDC has gotten feedback from families who said, but my child, this doesn't mention, let's see, jumping. Well, actually, it does do jumping, but there are a couple, like there's some things that people have said, kids do so many things at this age. How did you just choose a few? And by this review process, if you can imagine thinking about all the gross motor things that an 18-month-old does and pulling out the 4 or 5 key things that the research tells us most kids of that age do, and they do it at this point, that 75% of them have met that at this age. It was so it's not inclusive, but these are key things to pay attention to at each of those ages. But the other piece to remember too is that paying attention to development, which is what surveillance is more than just these milestones. You may notice some concern about the way a child does something, or that they previously did this thing, but they're not now doing it. Or it's not one of these milestones at all, but it's something that you have noticed that other children his age or her age are typically doing. So all of that comes in. These are not the only tools for doing developmental surveillance. Your knowledge of this child and your knowledge of where they are maybe having more challenges is so important, and we want to make sure that we capture that. But these are helpful. They're very helpful for this purpose, and we want to make sure people know that they exist. So here are some resources. You can certainly download the Milestone Tracker app yourself, which I would hope that you would. I actually find, like many apps, that me just downloading it is not enough. I have lots of apps on my phone that I had good intentions of using, but I didn't actually end up getting to use them because I kind of forget, or it's on, I've got to go find it, and I've got, 6 pages of things to scoot through before I find the Milestone Tracker app. I would love if you could take a little bit of time to download it and just play with it a little bit. See what you think. Add a child. So once you download it, you'll see, but the way you get started is it'll say add a child. And so you could do a play child. I have added my own daughters. I added my sister this past week, by her birthday. So you put the child's name in, birthday, and gender. And so then it'll ask you questions it'll say, okay, it's now time would you like to do the developmental checklist for Gertrude? And so Gertrude's thing will pop up and it asks you these questions, and it'll say, like, waves bye-bye. And it'll say, is she, your choices are, yes, she's doing it, you're not sure, or not yet. So those are kind of your options. And then under each one of them, there's a little spot where you could actually type a note. Like, he used to do this, but he doesn't do this so anymore. Or he waves like this. I don't know if your kids ever did that, but mine did. When they waved like this, which is totally great. But that might be something you want to document. Anywho, you answer these questions. If you get halfway through it and then you need to go change the baby's diaper and you come back, it'll say, would you like to finish this checklist? And then you can do that. You also get a reminder before it's time for, like, it'll send you one a few days before your child is going to turn 2 or 3 or 4, and it'll say, would you like to do the developmental checklist now for your child? So it has some of those notifications built in. You can turn all of those off if you don't want that, but I think it's useful. And so I've kind of played with it. So I entered 5 or 6 different people, ages, kids, so that I could see the function of the app. It is in English and Spanish, so that's really handy. It also has a way that you can translate. You can switch, like, the parent can fill it out in Spanish and then flip it to be in English, and vice versa. It's actually pretty cool. I also always want to let people know that the CDC collects one piece of information about people using the app, and that's what state you're in when you download it and launch it. So they don't collect anything about your child's name, birthday, none of that is collected. The only thing they do collect is the state in which you are located when you use the app. So we've had over 2 million launches of the app in the last, I think it's 5 years. And so it was updated, of course, with all the new milestones. All the videos were updated. It's updated in English and Spanish. So all of that work's already been done for us. Now our job is just letting people know about it. If you have questions playing with the app, please reach out to me. I'd be happy to do a little tutorial. But I do think it's a tool that is nice to be able to have some familiarity with it. So when you say to other families, this is this great app, but I don't know how it works either. So it's nice if you have a little bit of a head start, so you can show people how it works and how to navigate. You can also order these materials and resources, of course, online. And so it's, again, to that cdc.gov and then /act early, which is where all these resources are, and then /orders. So that's a place where you can actually place an order. We have gotten the word that the warehouse is full right now. So if you are interested in ordering some things, now might be a great time to do that. And they ship them directly to your house or your office. The milestones checklists, I would love for you to print those and have them available to share with families. One of the other things that's very nice with these materials is they can actually be customized. So if you wanted, for instance, you work with some people in your Ready region, or you want to have something that includes the new path information, you can actually They are Word documents, so you can actually go in and there's one spot where you can add a logo or a phone number. So I'm working right now with a WIC clinic and they want to put some customization in there about the referral numbers for early intervention, which I was a great idea. So I'm working with them right now to do that customization. So if you get kind of poking around in here and you say, do they have this or have we seen that? If it's not a resource I'm available or know about, I can ask my Act Early team partners in other states, and there may be something that someone else has already done. So my email address is here, dmbuck@vcu.edu. I work at Virginia Commonwealth University at the Partnership for People with Disabilities, and the partnership has been a long supporter of my work as the Act Early ambassador. For 100 years, I worked at VCU here in a official capacity as a faculty member and retired in 2020 and was able to continue my work at VCU as a consultant. And now I'm now back again as a staff member here at the partnership. So I'm grateful to have this opportunity to collaborate with my peers and colleagues here at VCU and love to get to work with New Path. We also have a Facebook presence and Instagram. We'd love to have you join us if you're able. It's Act Early Virginia. So that's our logo. And this is kind of what the homepage looked like when I took this picture. It may not look like this right now, but that's what the logo, the Virginia thing. So feel free to pop over there. And this is my contact information. So again, if there's something, this is my home email, which you're welcome to reach me there as well. And that's my phone number. I don't have an office space here, so you reaching me by cell is probably the easiest, and that's my phone number. So I can't tell you how nice it has been to have this time to chat with you and to let you know about these resources. And I do hate that we don't have the interplay with one another. So I would love to chat as a follow-up if there's any way I can be of assistance to you. But thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. And I look forward to working with you soon.